Some people can focus best in total silence. Others can't concentrate at all unless there's something playing in the background. Music, a podcast, cafe noise, a TV murmuring in the other room. Not because they're listening, but because silence feels wrong. Have you ever noticed how quiet rooms make your thoughts louder, while sound helps you settle into the task? The psychology of people who need background noise to focus isn't about distraction or poor attention. It's about how different minds regulate alertness, attention, and internal noise. What looks like a habit is often a nervous system strategy, one your brain uses to reach the state where focus finally becomes possible. At the core of this behavior is autonomic arousal, the level of activation in your nervous system that determines how alert or engaged you feel. Some people naturally sit below their optimal arousal level in silence. When things are too quiet, their system isn't calm, it's understimulated. Low arousal makes focus harder, thoughts drift, attention scatters, and the mind searches for stimulation. Adding sound gently raises arousal into a functional range where concentration becomes possible. This aligns with well-established psychology, showing that focus works best at moderate levels of activation. In this case, silence doesn't create clarity, it creates friction. This difference is largely biological. Nervous systems vary in how much stimulation they need to stay engaged. What feels distracting to one person may feel stabilizing to another. Focus isn't universal, it's calibrated. In certain minds, silence doesn't quiet thought. It removes the last barrier holding it in place. Without external sound, mental activity expands. Planning, replaying conversations, anticipating outcomes, jumping between ideas. Psychology describes this as internal noise, cognitive activity that competes with the task you're trying to focus on. In silence, that noise has nothing to push against. Sound changes the balance. By occupying a small portion of attention, it limits how much space intrusive thoughts can take up. This isn't a problem of focus or discipline, it's a matter of attentional sensitivity. When stimulation drops too low, attention turns inward and becomes self-generating. Sound gives it a boundary. For these minds, focus doesn't come from eliminating stimulation. It comes from keeping it in balance. Not all sounds support focus in the same way. Unpredictable audio can pull attention away, while steady, familiar soundscapes help the mind settle. This effect is known as cognitive anchoring. Predictable sensory input gives the brain something stable to orient around. Freud suggested that repetition has a containing function. Familiar patterns help the mind feel held rather than overstimulated. That's why people return to the same playlists, the same cafe ambiance, or the same background audio. Novelty demands attention. Familiarity lets attention rest. There's a crucial difference between sound you choose and sound imposed on you. Chosen sound supports focus. Imposed noise disrupts it. Psychologists link this to perceived control, the sense that you are shaping your environment rather than reacting to it. When you decide what plays, sound becomes part of your focus strategy instead of a competing demand. That's why music you selected works, while someone else's conversation breaks concentration. Here, focus depends less on stimulation itself and more on having control over the sensory environment. For many people, the hardest part of focusing isn't the work itself, it's the transition into it. This is sometimes called task initiation friction, the resistance between rest and effort. Sound acts as a buffer during that transition, softening the shift from inactivity to concentration. Without it, silence can feel abrupt, too empty, too exposed. That's why some people sit down to work in silence and end up doing everything except the task. This is especially common when starting cognitively demanding work. Sound creates continuity between rest and effort, making the transition feel smoother. Without it, the mind resists. not because it's lazy, but because the shift feels too sharp. In moments of transition, sound acts as a bridge, easing the mind from rest into effort. Needing background noise to focus doesn't mean you're unfocused or easily distracted. It means your mind reaches clarity through regulation, not silence. Some people concentrate best by removing stimulation. Others concentrate by shaping it. In the same way, some minds need order or environmental structure before they can settle. This is another strategy your nervous system uses to find balance. Different tools, same goal, a mental state where attention can finally stabilize. So, if you've ever questioned this habit, consider this instead. Your brain isn't fighting focus. It's engineering the conditions where focus becomes possible. Silence isn't the gold standard for concentration. Alignment is. And for your mind, sound is part of that alignment.